Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of New Reads. Today, as I do this video, the world is a different place from the video which I've done a few months ago. And the difference is for everybody to see. We are going through a war in the Middle East, and we just hope that the next round of talks, which are supposed to take place between US and Iran, fructify, and we are able to find more peace in this world. The book that I am reviewing today is a book which is very special because it has won the Booker Prize for 2025. This is a book by David Szalay. He's a Canadian writer, and this book is called Flesh. David Szalay is a person who has written 6 books, including Flesh, and some of his other works are The Spring, All That Man Is, and Turbulence, and so on. In fact, when he wrote The Turbulence, it was supposed to have been written for the radio, and it was written in a very, very tight and terse manner, which he says has given him a big lesson. And the very way in which, the manner in which he has written this particular book, Flesh, reveals a lot about the terse, pithy language that the author uses to describe his characters in this particular novel. This novel is about a Hungarian teenager who is a sort of isolated, a very taciturn person, a very quiet person. And all of a sudden, he falls into a relationship with one of his very elderly neighbors. Now, that was a very startling experience that he has. And that relationship is described in the first chapter itself. In fact, that first chapter is a very, very striking opener to the whole novel, and like any other first chapters should be. But as far as Flesh is concerned, this particular chapter is something that drives the entire novel. Because, the term flesh, which denotes sexuality, physicality in its full essence, comes out very clearly in the first chapter itself. So after this experience, and he goes through a very, very violent phase towards the end of that relationship. But then he goes away from that place. Then he enters the military, and he serves in the military for some time. And then he lands up as a chauffeur to a very rich man in London. So he comes to London. And that is where his entire life changes in a big way. He has made his entry into high society. He finds how people live in a high society. And then again, he falls into a relationship with the person whom he's serving, the wife of the person whom he's serving, and that is Mrs. Nyman. So much of the book is about that particular relationship, how that relationship, which is again a sexual relationship, blossoms into something that is very, very special for him. And that ends with his marriage to this woman after her husband passes away due to a deadly illness. And then, he begets a child in this lady, and then he also sort of searches for some meaning to his life, etc., etc. Now, what is remarkable about this particular novel is, as I said in the beginning, although people say, although it is said titled as Flesh, it is much of bone and very little of flesh in this, in the sense that it is written with very minimal words. It is very minimalistic in its approach, and there is a reason for it, which David Szalay has said in some of the interviews. And the reason he says is that he wanted to explore this character who is sort of trying to find some meaning to this thing that we call life. And when he starts on his journey, or when the author tries to explore, the journey of the main character called Iswan, the best way he thinks is to approach it through in a very minimalistic way, through the physicality itself, because when it comes to the physical nature of things, there is a definitiveness to it, and it can be expressed in very clear terms. So that is why he has chosen this kind of a physicality approach, and that, I think, makes the novel very, very different from some of the other novels that we read currently. The other very important thing is that none of the characters are described in their fullest. There is a very sketchy version of it, in the sense that nobody is being described in their physical aspects or their behavioral aspects. We come to know each character as we read the lines, the dialogues in the book, and that is the only giveaway of the person's character. There is no big description of how a person looks, how a person walks, how a person talks, nothing of that sort. And the dialogues itself in this book is very, very minimalistic again, because there would be so many times when a character says okay, yeah, yes, so on and so forth. And that is again very deliberately selected in that particular manner, because the author believes that the character himself or the character herself is not very clear as to what they are doing or where they are headed. There is a lot of uncertainty regarding their lives every moment. So the best way he thought to capture these things in the book is to talk very little about it and leave the reader to discern what it all actually means, to find the meaning. That endeavor is left to the reader. And that is the kind of approach that he has brought about in this particular book. So he experiments with this technique because matters of the flesh have a clarity and definitiveness to them. And this exploration of what it means to be alive is undertaken using this machine made of flesh or meat. So there is a particular quote which I liked when I read through some of the reviews. There's a review in the Guardian, where Kieron Goddard is saying that Szalay has rendered a man buffeted by forces beyond his control, be they the erotic or material desires of those who surround him, the undulations of the global economy, or the interventionist and radicalized foreign policy of the European Union. So that defines this character very well, because he's a very, very passive character who does not have too much of control over his life, like a lot of others who live in the modern world. I mean, I just opened with the statement about the war, and we are going through a phase where we are not certain as to what will be in store for us the next moment, the next day, because there are a whole lot of other external forces that controls the world. And when big nations decide to do things, then there is no way you can predict the way the global economy would turn out, how life would be, how the job situation would be, how the prices of goods will be, or you may not have even a control over how many days or how many years you will be able to sustain yourself in this world. So in that context, the book is also one about searching for a meaning, and the character seems to be just passing through particular various phases in his life, you know being a teenager, then working in the army as a soldier, then working as a chauffeur and getting into this relationship. And later he has got multiple relationships with several women. So in all this, there is a particular search for meaning that the author is sort of undertaking in this particular book. And one of the books that I remembered when I read Flesh is this book called A Happy Death by the celebrated writer Albert Camus. And in The Happy Death, as many of you would have read, there is this particular character called Patrice Mersault, who kills a very rich, invalid person called Roland Zegres in order to create his own happiness using the rich man's money. So it was like there again, it's a pursuit of happiness where you deliberately shape the narrative or deliberately try to shape your destiny, although it does not probably really work out that manner. Here is a person who is also trying to take life every day, move step by step. Even sometimes when he goes through so much of setbacks in life, he tries to move on and on. And at the end of the day, he seems to be having a very, very satisfying life. So this is a book that I'm sure will startle a lot of readers because there are so many questions that this book raises. One of the primary things is that, as I said, why there is no description, no big descriptions of the characters in this particular novel. How you can build a novel using very, very minimal things that are being said. So the structure itself is something that, although it is simple, it is very striking, and some people may find it very, very different from what they're used to, and they may feel that that is not probably the way you should have written it. But then that is a different way of approach. The second thing is, of course, regarding the sexuality that is being discussed here. And this raises a moral question. The first chapter itself, the way in which it is written, it's very, very stark, lurid kind of approach, language that is used, which can really startle the reader. It might generate interest, especially to young readers, but then the question arises as to how much descriptions you can do, whether you need to do it this manner or whether it can be another manner. So it raises a lot of questions in terms of the morality of the characters. You can say that, okay, the character of this man is very loose or that woman is loose, and all that can be debated. The third, of course, is again the very, very fast-paced approach that the author uses. So there are 10 chapters, and each chapter represents the number of years of a person, of the characters over a particular time zone. By the time the next chapter comes, it could be several years, which would have passed by, and he would be looking at a new phase in his life. But when you put it together, you get an overall picture of the character and the times that this man passes through. What is my independent kind of opinion about this book? I should say that I liked the book primarily because of this big experiment that the author has undertaken, which is to look at the meaning of life, to explore the life of a young man from his young days to the time he gets older and begets a family, etc., etc. And then through that, when you're describing that, you also describe the things that are shaping that particular person, his country, his environment, his business empire, the kind of pulls and pressures he goes through, all that. And then all this being said in a particular way, which is very, very, the structurally quite different from some of the other novels that you find. And there is not much of internalization that happens. There is not much of inner search deliberately done, but as a reader goes through it, you sort of try to empathize with the character, and you sort of feel that he is somebody like you in this particular world, in this present world, searching for your own meaning of life. And that is a big takeaway I have from this novel. And I really look forward to other novels from David Szalay. I hope you also find this book interesting. Happy reading. Have a good day.